Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 35 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Dratnos, joined, of course, by Tettles and Trell, as always, and our special guest this week, our Preheat and Xyronic, world first raiders. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thanks for being on our show. And we got Trell. We flew him out here to be here, too, at the GameStop Performance Center.
I went a really long way to get here.
Yeah, how far? Oh, man.
I actually live in Dallas. This is wonderful for me to just be able to swing by.
Yeah, dude. Texas is great. I love this state.
So we are coming off of Limit's world first for North America in 8 years. And today we're going to talk about the whole process of winning that, going from where Limit started to here, and all of those things. Tettles, you looked apprehensively at me.
I did not mean to look apprehensively at you. I didn't mean to look at you at all, honestly.
There's a gap between my computer here where I can see Tettles, and he just looks at me all the time. Just right over there. It's very weird.
I can just see Dranos' forehead.
Yeah, I can see Trell over there. Okay, so yeah, we're all in the same building, which is really cool.
So, this isn't how you normally do it, right? Like, you're never in the same place for this, right?
Oh, right.
No.
Why don't you guys all, huddle in the same camera?
That's what I wanted to do, but Tettles is like, no.
Together. Oh, he needs his personal space. Okay.
Yeah,
I can respect that.
But it'll fuck with the microphone, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could just have, this really, fancy mic that you all speak into. Like a trio.
Yeah, we could have done something if we had planned really far ahead with wireless headsets and one camera. That'd be cool sometime.
Yeah, that's the move. As long as we're careful about not talking at the same time, we should be okay on this setup. But if we talk at the same time, we'll hear each other on each other's phones, and that'll be bad. Anyways, let's advance with our show. So we're going to start by talking about Limit, the history of Limit, starting the guild to where, when you guys joined it, to where it is today. We'll talk about all the raids between when it started and now. Then we'll talk about the race in Ny'alotha itself, all the things that happened there. And we'll talk about the bosses to whatever extent, there's anything interesting that you guys want to talk about those. Talk about the win, and then we'll talk about the process of moving forward from here, how much we think the race to World First has changed fundamentally after all the things that were done differently this time. And that will be our show. But first,
Sweet.
We have some very special patrons to thank over at patreon.com/Titanforge, allowing us to make our show every week except for last week when we didn't make a show. Ahar of US Proudmore, Paul of US Proudmore, King of Skills, VTech XD, Rock, Zuko, Ja, Uncle Please Invite, Khalifa D. Pog, Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Dawn EU, Mrs. Tettles, Actually Tootsie, Heltari, Ishiyu, Blue of Emerald Dream, Chromed, Seraphicus, Trekkie, The Marsh Hare, Regulus, Never Nude, and Grizzjam. Thanks so much. Okay, so we are into part 1, Limit as a guild. So I guess Preheat, when did you join up with Limit?
I've been in Limit since it formed, so day 1.
So what was that process like of forming the guild?
So I wasn't directly involved in forming the guild, but I was one of the people who was in on the know. Basically, what had happened is all of us had kind of played a game together, a little game. Some of you may have heard of it called WildStar. It was, the big WoW killer at the time, one of many. So we all queued up. We played WildStar. Just Wait was in there. We had a couple other Method people. It was kind of a hodgepodge of who's who in the raiding community. We had, all the guys from WWA, Duality, Midwinter, Blood Legion, Method. I mean, it was it was kind of a cool experience. We ended up joining up with a guild called Enigma and getting some of the world firsts in that game. It was really fun, great experience. And the main thing that we took away from it was we had these relationships that we built, right? So all these players knew each other. We were all good players and we knew all the other good players. And we thought, hey, you know what? What if we just did this in WoW? We already all get along. We know each other. What if we did it there instead? So that was kind of the big idea that Max and Truefire and the other officers at the time, Brazuka, were kind of the architects for, right? And then we kind of start feeling our options out, talking to people kind of privately, like, hey, what if you left your guild and joined our new theoretical? And that's how we formed. And the original intent was just to be like super casual, raid like 2 days a week, and still get like top 20. That was like all we wanted to do. And there was like a coalition at the time that was like, we will never do anything more than this. We only want to do this, nothing more, because we don't want to ever go for world first. That was like all the old Blood Legion guys. They were like, we don't want to do world first. They're all like, we want to go to the retirement home, right? Like, obviously over time that changed, right? Because people got cycled in, new people always want to do more, right? It's like the young, ambitious types that want to do more. So,
yeah, you guys did exactly what they didn't want to do. You got world first.
Yep, we did. Yeah, that's right. So over time, as the roster changed and people, got I guess upgraded in a way, and our roster got better and better. It was just eventual. I think that we would eventually do as well as we did. Right? Like you can't just keep getting better and just not see that manifest itself in some way.
Or Zara, how about you? When did you join up with Limit?
I think I'm going to go with if Preheat was a day 1 guy, I was essentially a day 2 guy. When Blood Legion died, I actually applied to Midwinter. I was planning on going to that guild. But Limit, in their very first raid, they needed more people because they didn't have 20 people in the guild at the time. So they asked me to go do their very first farm raid with them, and ended up just sticking around after that.
So this was Blackrock Foundry Farm?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then we burst into Hellfire Citadel, and you guys got US first in that one, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember what we did. I don't remember any of it.
I remember a video.
I remember the epic bald eagle American flag video. That's all I remember.
Zara's cracking up.
That was a good one.
That is a classic video.
Made a lot of people mad.
So then coming out of that, you guys move into Legion. What was the thought process in Legion? Were you guys still trying to be 2 days a week, or was that when it started ramping up?
So Legion's funny. Let me tell you a funny story about Legion. So imagine this, right? The expansion is about to drop, right? And everyone's ready. We have these big, ambitious plans to do more in Legion. We're gonna increase our hours. We're gonna do a little bit better. We're gonna really shoot for like that top 5, right? And our leadership is really solid. We're really happy with all of our members. And then 30 minutes before servers go live, our GM quits.
Who was the GM at the time?
Truefire was our GM.
Okay, thanks.
So he, bless his heart, he was, starting a relationship, and he was kind of lost in the sauce. So he was dipping out to go, do real life things. The problem was that we didn't know about this until 30 minutes before the expansion dropped. So Limit as it is right now, like, could have just died at that moment very easily. Truefire passed GM to Jet Jaguar, who was obviously casting our event. He's the OG, right? So yeah, Jet over there, as you can see on camera. GM was passed to Jet, and you know what? We still did really well in Legion despite the rocky start. So
yeah, so you guys managed to get through there. There was no you weren't really trying for world first at any point in Legion, though, right? It was like top 5, US first, were kind of the ballpark.
Yeah, I'd say really our strategy in Legion was just to play when we wanted to play and see what we could get out of it. There was never like a unified push to go for world first. It was just, let's see how good we are during the hours we want.
What ended up coming of like that whole ban scenario in Tumas Argyris? Like that must have been pretty rough, getting banned over and over again.
TOS, yeah, TOS and TOS was very Monka-esque, you could say. It was so basically going into TOS, let's just say that back then things were a little different in the World of Warcraft. The World of Warcraft wasn't quite what it is now. I think every guild at the time was breaking the rules in ways that would be completely not acceptable nowadays. Method was blatantly account sharing on stream. So were we, but to a lesser extent. We really did it like only one tier, but I mean, it still, like, everyone got beamed for it, and we all learned our lesson, so we moved on. But that wasn't even, really what we got hit for. It was for real life money stuff. We were doing runs, we were piling characters, we were making bukus of money. It was great. We were really just stacking the deck, dude. Hashtag stack the deck. Fun times. Yeah, money was flowing. Everything was great. And then the party ended very abruptly, and everyone got banned. And you know what? It wasn't sustainable, I guess. You know, sometimes you learn from your mistakes, and you learn quick. And that was definitely one of those learning experiences for us. So,
I mean, it has to be hard, like especially if you want to commit to raiding as many hours as you guys are. It's like, how do you make this sustainable long term money wise? Like, I definitely get how it happens.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? You're dedicating so much of your time, right? Like, how do you do that without some sort of way to sustain it financially? Now, how we do it now is obviously different, right? Like, we still make money from this. It's just now we do it through like a more ethical means. You know what I mean? But at the time, it was just, oh, dude, we can play this guy's dude, bring him in, and make a bunch of money. Hell yeah, let's get it, dude. So it was, man, that was good times, dude. If you could take what we have now and that together, I mean, this would be like a dream. But you know,
a little bit less of the Wild West though these days.
Yeah, it's a little less Wild West, and it's probably for the best. But yeah, man, sometimes I think about those old days, and that was good. Good times,
rent, bro. I feel it.
At least the new sponsor is really awesome. I'm really impressed walking in here.
Yeah, complexity is just amazing. Like everything that we could have hoped for in a sponsor and in the partner, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's crazy, man. We're still getting food. I mean, we got hot food right now. Help yourselves. Right, just go walk down the hall, man. Yeah.
We have tacos today. Like, there's a taco station to construct your own taco. THD, his answer to that station was to just take a bowl and put taco meat into it and just eat that with a spoon. That was it. That was his move.
Yeah, taco station. Dude, this guy over here. Let's
There he is.
Power move.
Also on top of that, Xyronic has his cup. I too have the hot chocolate from the Supreme hot chocolate machine over there.
Same, yeah.
It had like small, medium, large size, all digital. It had strength of chocolate choice, like small.
You gotta max it out.
Low, medium, or strong chocolate.
You always go with the strong chocolate. That one, I've never clicked any button other than that. The first hot chocolate I made, right. I hit start before I locked in my options. That was a mistake. That was a throw. You got to look through those options and pick the good ones.
Yeah, that's right. You always go maximum chocolate, maximum coffee, and
maximum size of the beverage.
Yep, maximum out.
That's the move. So that's a little bit ahead of where we are in the narrative. Was getting to the GameStop Performance Center, teaming up with Complexity. Let's talk a little bit about the start of Battle for Azeroth, because that's a little bit, I guess, kind of it leads us to here, right? Is how we got to this point. So in Uldir, that was when you guys really started going for world first, right?
I wouldn't really say that was a tier where we really thought we were going into it going for world first. I think it was more of, I think the older mentality was, if we always have 20 people on and we always want to play, let's just play. There definitely wasn't any push to say, let's go for world first. It was more of a, if we want to keep playing and we're doing really well, we're just going to keep playing. And it turned out that we got really close to it that time, but I don't think that was our mentality going into it.
Yes, that was the one where you guys went, you were ahead until Zool, then you lost, like the Method took the lead on Zool, and then you guys took the lead back on Mithrax and got to Cahoon first, and we had that big wave of hype. Then Tuesday rolled around and you guys chose to extend the lockout, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that decision. A lot of Twitch chat not happy about that one. If you guys could go back in time, would you change that one, or you stick by it?
I'll answer this one. I think it was the right decision at the time, based on what we knew. But obviously, hindsight's 2020, and we know now, like how the Vanus nerf actually had an effect, right? Like we were assuming that Vanus was going to stay the same. We didn't realize that there were other things that were going to change. So, based on what we had, it seemed logical, right? Because think about it. You could spend 8 more hours, right? 8 more hours, and you could gear out your guys a little bit more. But is that 8 hours worth the gear, right? Or could just familiarity be the difference? I mean, just look at N'Zoth, right? Whenever we first got there, we were pushing the boss to like, 70%, and we were like, dude, 50 is impossible. 50 is impossible. We can't do 50. Okay, we can't do 30. No, we can't do 25. No, we can't do 0. It's like, familiarity is the biggest DPS increase you can possibly have, right? So our strategy at the time was just, okay, well, let's lower the item level and let's increase the familiarity, and we're going to bank on this being the best. And honestly, it would have worked too, because we killed the boss without the gear, right? So like our strategy was sound. It was just that other things went wrong. I think fans like to say like one thing is always the problem, right? Like they try to like determine and troubleshoot like where the misstep was, and they like to focus on one thing. And you'll see this with Method right now, focusing on the coaching thing, right? They say, oh, the coaching is why we lost, but it's never just one thing. There's like a million things, right? One of those things might be bigger, but I think the extend was a misstep, but I don't think it was at all as big as people conflate it to be. I think the real issue was just that we didn't have a disc priest until the last poll. We didn't have a fire mage until like the last couple polls. Like we were making bad comp decisions, and until those got fixed, it was just worse than it could have been. And as soon as we made those fixes, we killed the boss right away. So obviously we could have done it without the gear, because we did it.
Okay, so after coming that close on Cahoon, did that change the guild philosophy going forward into Battle of Zarlor, or were you still on the we'll raid whenever we want and see what happens train?
You got to take these. I wasn't there.
Okay. I mean, I was kind of there. I kind of went casual at that point, but yeah, I mean, so it was, the best way to put it is it was like an eye-opening experience, right? Because like you see like how well you can do, and you're like, wait a second, like we could just go all in, right? Like there's a certain point where you're playing and you're thinking to yourself like, what would it take for us to try and go for world first? Like what would need to happen here for us to go all the way from now on? And like that tier, we'd already kind of committed to it, right? And we saw like how good we were doing first to Cahoon, first, that was the meme at the time, first to Moon, first to Cahoon, right? We just, we were kind of on fire at that point. Obviously, like misstep in the fourth quarter, but at that point, I mean, we were changed forever, right? Like that, us getting to Cahoon when we did, kind of just that made us like a world first competition. Like people had to take us seriously after that. So
yeah, it had to have been a good moment to just like realize the talent of your guild and be like, we could really do this, right? Is that just like a collective moment for the guild?
Yeah, I think everyone kind of rallied, right? Like we were, people were psyched. And even after that tier, obviously we had some things that we had to figure out. Like we were very new to it, right? And we made a lot of mistakes, but it was something where we took all those as a learning experience, and we changed the things that we need to change. And moving forward, I think we've done nothing but improve. But the mentality of the guild has never been the same since then, and that's for the best, obviously.
Do you think that you cycled a lot of raiders out because of the change in mentality of wanting to push for world first? Because obviously the roster has changed a significant amount since old.
Yeah, so like the cause and effect is weird, right? Like I don't know what the cause, like what came first, right? The chicken or the egg. It's one of those kind of things. Like I don't know if it was the fact that we lost those members that allowed us to change the guild culture to want to go for world first, or if it was the people who are really hungry for world first that pushed out the old people, right? But regardless, the bottom line is that the makeup, the chemical transition of the guild went from a guild that just was fine with being, a top 20, top 5 guild. It changed very quickly to a let's get world first guild.
Zyro, you were kind of in and out of the guild at this time, right? You hopped between a couple places. What was the atmosphere changing like for you? Was that something that you wanted to be in the guild one way or the other? How did that go?
After a little year, I just kind of realized, or had it explained to me that what I wanted to do and what the guild wanted to do were kind of a different thing. The culture fit wasn't that great for me, so I ended up bowing out for a while there. And then once some people changed around, I ended up rejoining for Eternal Palace. But I mean, yeah, I ended up hanging out in Future, ridden with friends for a while, taking it easy, and then when I got the opportunity to go back for World First, I mean, that was all it took. I wanted to help NA get a World First.
I mean, that's the only reason you got that MDI job is because you were raiding in Future. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, everyone knows that's the only reason that happened.
You see, like Nerf said in chat, did Zyro join Future just so he could become an MDI?
No, I mean, realistically, and this is the absolute truth, I had already been in talks with people at Blizzard for months before I joined Future, so obviously it might have helped a little bit, but it definitely wasn't the primary reason.
Zyra trying to keep those the future secret under the table for as long as possible. Okay, so
We know the truth, Twitch chat.
So we came out of Uldir. Gahoon was really close. Jaina was a little bit less close, right? That one was one where the kind of the strategy and the thought process you guys had was that it was just not going to be killable week one, and then Method killed it week one. So did that cause you to have to like reevaluate anything in the guild?
Let's just say that, yeah, Jaina was a misstep of mathematics, I think is the best way to put it. It was just, there was a certain strat that could have been used, and we did the math on it, and our math was bad. And we determined that we couldn't do it. So we changed, after that, we changed like who does our math. And ever since then, it's been on point. But yeah, that whole tier, I don't like to, yeah, it's not a good time. Yeah, I mean, this is something that you go through, right? Whenever you're trying to figure out your place in the economy of what guilds are doing what, and whenever you try to go for world first, there's a lot of things you have to learn. You can't just be like, oh, hey, you know what, my 2-day guild, we're going for world first, baby, let's get it. Like, there's a big learning curve, by the way. Even if you're like a top 5 guild, even if you're a top 3 guild, there's a big learning curve to go for that top slot. And unless you've done it multiple times, you're going to make every single mistake you can make. And it's going to be really bad, and you're going to have a lot of really embarrassing things that happen, like doing the math wrong or like extending and becoming a meme, right? It's just going to happen, and then you learn from those mistakes and you get better. Then you get world first. That's how it works.
Yeah, streaming was also something that was kind of interesting. You know, in Uldir and BOD, we had method streaming, and you guys were not streaming. Of course, there's a lot more disadvantages that come with streaming if you're the first guild on stuff. Was that the reason to not start the stream at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even debatable, right? If you're streaming and your content comes out sooner, you're at a disadvantage 100% from streaming. Like, you're just giving everyone your strats. You're showing everyone the exact path you should take. You're, you know, even if we're as efficient as we can be, which I think this tier we were as efficient as we could have been in like those first couple bosses, we're still, you know, every guild that follows us should be more efficient than us because we had to field it out, right? It's like one of those situations where you're trying to figure out what path you should take, and there's landmines, right? And we're going to step on every landmine, and everyone else who follows can already see where the craters are, and they can just avoid those.
But then going into Eternal Palace, you guys decided, all right, we can stream this. Do you guys just think we can be good enough to make this work regardless, or was there the benefits of streaming that kind of outweighed the drawbacks?
Yeah, you got to weigh the pros and cons, and we kind of just banked on the fact that if we do streaming, we can keep some of the players that we want to keep. We can recruit players who maybe want to go for this, but they, you know, streaming has to be on the table for them. And we can make money. We can make the money work for people who, like myself, have a real job or not real. I shouldn't say real job. That's kind of discrediting what we were doing here. But a wagey job, I guess, is the best way to put it.
I'm a wagey.
Like the wagies, like myself, right? Like without people like Complexity, without, you know, the World First Race, without Twitch, like it'd be really hard for me to justify what I'm doing in my life right now. You know what I mean? So like there are definitely people who are playing that wouldn't be able to play if we didn't stream. Obviously there's cons too, but like we think that the pros outweigh the cons.
I have a quick question about post Battle to Zarlord. Do you think that was like a low point for the guild, because that was a pretty public loss, and it felt like Limit was actually the favorite going into that tier somewhat because of how close Uldir was?
Yeah, I mean, so like that tier was probably the time in this guild's history that I was the least involved in the guild. I took off that tier pretty much the entire tier, but I still was like in the circle, right? Like I knew what was going on. I knew it wasn't a good situation, but I mean, it's, you know, we came out of it stronger than ever, right? So I would say that the big takeaway from that tier was just it was a huge learning experience for us.
Okay, so Eternal Palace Race has a bunch of new things for you guys. You're streaming, and you're also coming from London now. You're waking up in the morning, not in the morning, you're waking up in the afternoon to raid over in American times, raiding through the night, and going to bed at 9 a.m. Zyra, was that a pleasant time?
You know, I think I'm the wrong person to ask this because I didn't mind it at all. I actually thought it was very fun. Like the whole experience of raiding in a foreign country and being able to like hang out there with 15 of your dudes, you guys that you hang out with all the time. It was a lot of fun for me. And I would say one of the biggest advantages that we had during that is we found out how important just being able to sit around while we're eating and talk about strats was. Every single day after a raid, we'd go to our hotel breakfast place. We'd sit there for an hour. We'd eat breakfast. We'd talk about strats. And some of our best strategies in Eternal Palace ended up coming from that. So, it was a fantastic experience in general. Obviously, the timing thing was a little weird, but I don't think that's something that affected us in the long run too much while we were there.
So more positives than negatives from just all the benefits of being in person. Okay, yeah. So, Pri, did you have a similar experience, or was there more negative?
No, I think it was vastly positive. The only thing was the vampire schedule, like I mentioned. It's not, humans are not meant to be awake, the opposite of what we're supposed to be awake, right? Like, we aren't that kind of animal, so it doesn't work that well. Yeah, you know what? It's, if you're in a different country and you've never been to a different country and you're completely opposite of what the schedule is, and you're also like walking around when normally you never leave your house, I think it's just, a lot of it was jarring for some of our members who aren't used to that sort of thing. And I think that it might have affected our play in some ways, but I think that overall it was, still like everything else, right? We always weigh the pros and cons, and I think the pros outweighed the cons.
So that benefit there of like getting your break time also being your strategy discussion time, being synced up with all your friends, that was kind of the big things that you took to the next level with Ny'alotha, right? The partnership with Complexity got us this venue, the GameStop Performance Center, where you've got these like classrooms where you
a spaceship.
Yeah, this is a remarkable place. How much did going to here help you in this race?
Okay, so it's hard to answer this question without sounding like I'm just gonna trash on London, right? Because, but it's really just, it's not even comparable, and it's not that London was bad. It's just this place is insane, right?
Yeah.
It's like hey, so we have like this gamer dungeon you can play games in. Okay, cool, right? And then it's like an alien comes out of a spaceship and is like, yo, you want to like check out my spaceship? It's kind of cool. And then you walk inside and you're like, holy fuck, humans have never seen this technology before. It's so, I mean, it's not comparable, right? It's otherworldly. There's nothing on this planet that really compares to what we're using up here.
Because of the infinite snacks, honestly.
I mean, there's like
infinite snacks, infinite Red Bull. I mean, Red Bulls was the same, but
there's like a 50-foot screen right above us that like curves around the room in an arch. It's just one small thing of this.
Yeah, this the Race World First ribbon thing.
That's
cool.
That's a very expensive piece of technology right there. I mean, everything here is state of the art. I don't think there's any other organization in the world right now in terms of like a gaming org that has the facilities that Complexity has. They are unrivaled. And I think that they gave us a huge advantage. I think that especially the classroom, if y'all have seen it, I don't know if it's been on camera much, but I can tell y'all that classroom is the shit. Basically, it's like this big ass touchscreen, and they've got it programmed. They took the time to like set up all the areas so that like we could draw and put raid markers. And it's like, dude, they're so thoughtful too. Like, they've really just been like a fantastic partner to work with, and everything they've done for us has been fantastic.
I actually thought that you guys weren't going to use that classroom very often, but the fact that you guys used that classroom every single night during dinner was hilarious.
Yeah, and there were times when we would like come out of like a discussion or come out of like a raid, and then we'd walk out, and dark hair Max would look at us and say classroom, and it's like, okay, we're going to the classroom, I guess, guys. Let's go check out what they want to.
Awesome. Sorry, teacher. I'll go to the class.
That's some next level min max. First, you min max your character in the game, then you min max dinner in between the game.
Well, I mean, it makes sense though, right? Because it's 24 hours is one of the most valuable resources you've got, right? The things you have to optimize the most is how to spend that time. And if you can double up on the strat time and the eating time, that's one thing. Another big change we saw coming into this race, though, was that the actions of raid leading, weak order development, boss timer development, strategy development, all of those things were taken out of the responsibilities of the 20 people in the raid. How was the thought process behind doing that? And do you think that that's going to forever change the structure of the Race to World First?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've already had clips from Scripe over our method saying, I mean, after this raid, he's not going to play anymore. He's just going to full-time coach. I mean, the choice of having people make your weak auras and boss timers for you is such a huge time saver, because the person who did that for us before was Siori. And if we ever wanted to update timers mid-progress, we had to say, okay, 10-minute break, let him update the timer. Now, mid-poll, Mystical, the guy who runs DBM, will be on our Discord saying, hey guys, I have updated timers from that new longest poll you guys did. Put them in before the next poll. And it's just, it's so useful to have people outside the raid doing that, saving time, so that we can do, you know, kind of those crazy polls where we just keep going and keep going, which is what we're kind of known for. I mean, it's so useful to have them on the sideline the entire time.
It definitely felt like you guys kind of hit the rhythm of, like, you have just a bunch of different partners that are able to allow you guys to just do what you guys are best at, which is raiding. Like, of course, you had Bubba Dub and Tags, like, on the sideline helping with strategy, Mystical and Relo helping with boss mods and weak auras, and then like the whole entire complexity staff helping with just accommodations and everything else that you could possibly need. So it felt like it was just like one of those things that everything kind of hit at once, and it was, once you have all the facilities in place, you guys kind of flourished as a guild.
Here's the thing. We've never been good at weak auras. We've never been good at timers. We've never had the infrastructure. We've always been just really, really good players and good leadership. And all we did was we decided, you know what was the most efficient way for us to get this going? That's what we need to do moving forward. And in a way, it's like all of the weights are off, right? The training weights are off, and we're at our full potential, right? And it's not that crazy of an idea. Like, people are saying, oh, you changed the game, you broke the meta. Dude, this is the logical conclusion of all of this. Like, how could you not see this coming? Obviously, this is how every other program works this way, right? Like, you have a coach, you have, you know, people who are working on strat on the side. Like, this is literally how competitive things are done. All we did was just took what, you know, people have been doing for years in other games and other industries, you know, even like professional sports. We just, you know, learned from that. We took those strategies, we adapted it for World of Warcraft. I mean, it's not anything crazy or big brain in a way. I think it's being a little bit conflated to like bigger than it is, you know.
But Preheat, the Limit Island Tools weak aura that you made was flawless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was lit.
Yeah, I didn't make that, but I stole it, and I
You
said
should
I
still
made it.
propagate that you made it.
Yeah, it's lit, but it's complexity limit island tool. So
It's funny that
Clit is not okay.
when he mentioned that we've never been good at weak auras, it reminds me of that time in Nighthold when Tags, who you mentioned, used to make our weak auras. And I don't know how he managed to do it, but he made a weak aura for Grand Magistrix Elisand, and he had me test it. And we pulled the boss. My game crashed. And when I logged back into the game, the weak aura was gone.
Oh no!
Don't know what happened.
it had a
Also
self-destruct
expand the
feature.
guild.
So yeah. When he says we weren't good at weak auras, we really weren't really that good at weak auras.
Yeah, and it's not, you know, I'm not trying to flame our people who have done weak auras in the past, right? It's just that, you know, there are obviously people who are way better at that stuff than we are. We're just a bunch of dumbasses in this guild, so, you know, it's
Auto
good that
crashes your game. Like, that's such a fucking funny line.
Okay, on the topic of all being dumbasses, how has the guild like banter and mid-raid communication always been this way? Of just like you guys just clowning around on every single pull?
It has always been this way from the start. And if anything, it's been worse in the past in terms of people having different conversations on top of each other. There used to be a time where there would constantly be at least 4 layers of conversation happening at the same time at any given moment. Like, one conversation would be about sports, one would be about what's actually happening in the fight and what we should focus on. Other thing would just be like someone roasting someone else for some random thing, and then there would be like some guy just talking about random bullshit like THD. So like it would just be like, you know, it was impossible to keep focus in a way. But I think we've gotten better about that. But yeah, our banter is that's just us, man. That's 100% us.
I mean, I remember the first time we ever streamed comms and farm, and like the predominant thing that we got from chat was, how do you guys know what's going on in Mumble right now? Because yeah, there were just 4 conversations going on at the same time.
Dude, the comms are great. There's actually one moment I remember from watching the stream from home. They were like, let's go to comms. Let's listen to what Mac's saying right now. And as soon as they swapped over, Max was like, who's the biggest idiot on this poll who we can put in this other group, right? And they were talking about Xyronic because he happened to die that poll. It's just so funny, like the moment they tuned in.
Yes, who's the stupidest idiot on our team right now that we can
They
send to
called
the
it in the
Psychus realm?
guild full of clowns.
Yeah.
Who's the biggest idiot in this guild full of clowns?
Obviously, he wasn't serious, but it was funny.
Yeah, we have fun. I mean, it's, we like to have a good time. That's the thing about us, right? Like, yeah, we obviously are competitive. We want to get that world first, but our motivation has always been to have a good time. And we want to be competitive. We definitely cut the fat when we need to, but aside from that serious side of us, like, we also just really want to just hang out with the boys. That's what we do. I don't think that there's any situation in this guild where there's one guy that everyone hates. If that happens in this guild, it doesn't last. Like, that person will not last in this guild. We're all just like really friendly and everyone gets along. And I know that sounds cliche, but that's just kind of how it has to be if you're going to spend this many hours with each other.
Yeah, especially if you have to spend a week doing islands for 16 hours a day with all your buds. How was that experience?
Oh, I see. I love islands, right? I do them to relax and kick back. So it's not about the neck level. It's about the vacation. Right?
We saw you with your glasses on, your sunglasses on, and like the tropical Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah. That's my bit. Yeah.
Zyra, how about you? Did you enjoy the week-long island adventure?
I don't remember any of it, so that should be your key. I mean, it was fun, right? We all hung out in Discord. There were like 3 or 4 groups in the same channel together. We're all just shooting the shit the entire time. Several of the days we just had, we watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the extended version in Discord. All watched it together, talked about it together. We watched the Harry Potter all 8 movies. We were just shooting the shit, man, having fun. We got Shakib in here, part of the Island Squad. Yeah, man. Islands were great.
Brittany just walked by and told me that the inflatable palm tree is still up. Preheat?
Yeah, so I actually said something before I left for Dallas, and it was that if I got world first, I would keep the palm tree up for the rest of this expansion. And I kind of regret saying that, but yeah, so the palm tree is going to be up. I just put a picture in our Discord of what it looks like, so you guys can see that. But yeah, it's that inflatable palm tree. Imagine waking up every morning and the first thing you have to do is to pump like a pound of air into something else in your morning state. Like, inflating that thing is actually hell on earth. I didn't imagine how annoying it would be to inflate it every morning. It's not really well built. It isn't really designed to be used in an extended period of time. It's made as like a party prop, like a one-day kind of thing. Hey, I want to have my birthday be a Hawaiian theme. Okay, cool. Here's a palm tree, right? It's not meant to be a, hey, let's just have this out for a whole fucking year. So every morning, the first thing I'm going to have to do is to inflate that piece of shit. So
Wait, did you inflate it like manually?
Yeah, manually. I use my lungs and I use my mouth and I inflate. And that's how I probably lost at least 10 brain cells every morning from, lack of oxygen inflating that stupid thing. But here,
that sets you up perfectly to do islands for the whole day.
You got to invest in a pump, bro. If you got to keep that up for the rest of the
expansion. Yeah, that's actually the first thing I'm going to do whenever I get back is to get a pump, because there's no way I will actually lose too many brain cells to be able to play in this guild anymore if I blow up that tree every day.
Actually, okay. All right. Okay. All right, let's take a breath.
I want to put this on the camera so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Hold on.
Okay, yeah.
Let's get this to focus in.
Beautiful.
There it is. There. That's the island setup right there. This is peak performance. You might not like it, but this is what peak performance.
Honestly, you just need like Malibu rum and orange juice in that drink.
Yeah. You get like a coconut full of drink. You're just sitting there.
Yep.
That'd be the move. Okay. Another thing that was new in this tier was the corruption system. That was a replacement to Titanforging. Zyra, looks like you had a reaction there when I said that. How did that change the race, and how do you feel about the system as a whole?
I mean, corruption was no big deal. You just bought the items you needed, pretty much, right? That's all.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a cool, like, 260 million gold. I mean, every guild's got that, right?
Yes, both the guilds that paid that, I'm sure, are very excited about the prospect of repaying it over the next expansion.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be that bad. I mean, with a mount to sell on heroic, as well as the mythic boss having a mount as well. It should be pretty easy to pay back, hopefully, over the next few.
Yeah, so of course the corruption system on BOE is very problematic, especially because the difference between the good corruptions and the bad ones, like spending a good 100 corruption was so good, and a bad 100 corruption could be almost negligible impact. Like on Fire Mage's Preheat, there was that mastery from all sources that was just blasting for you guys. What was the, like, how much of that did you have, and how much of a difference did it make?
Okay, so can I get on a soapbox and rant a little bit?
Yes, 100%.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm leaning in. So here's the thing, right? Whenever we were going into the tier, people were telling me that mastery percent was bad. Everyone likes to argue, right? Everyone's an expert, and we knew that was going to be insane. Here's the thing, man. Fire Mage is unrivaled when it comes to cleaving. And how do you cleave? Well, you use mastery. Well, what if mastery was your best stat? What if you just made it so your guy scales better with mastery than everything else? Well, then it becomes a really good single target. But guess what? It is just insane in cleave. It's not okay. Like, you can't take a class that's already that good at cleaving and then multiply it by 24 or 36%. To make it better. Like, it's nuts. It's nuts that's a thing. Now, here's where the problem is, right? It's really low corruption. The items are like very low in terms of budget. So you need a lot of them. You only have 3 slots you can get BOEs for. So all of our mages had to have 3 mastery percent ones. That's still only 60 corruption at the most, right? So this week, if you have those 3, you're still sitting at a cool, I have boots on too, which is 10, and I'm only at 25. It's like 15 corruption for all 3 of them. Right? That's like really low. Like, you want to have more corruption. So you have to get lucky. Some people are blessed. Fired Up got a mastery percent ring tier 3 out of his fucking box on Tuesday.
Yes,
that's so lucky.
That's the dream. That's like literally getting a legendary. Not all of us got that. So, it's one of those things where you really just got to pray that you get like something good. I'm wearing like 410 boots right now with haste on them. Not very good, but better than my 475. So take that for what it is. But here's what I want to rant about. So never before in this game has there been a system like this where it's been so absolutely pay to win, in the sense of you in a casual guild, right? Like, let's say you're in some guild, best on the server. You guys don't raid like super hardcore, but like you're the best on your server, right? And let's say that you play the same class as this other guy, right? And you think, what, this other guy, he's a better player than me, but you know what? I think I have a way I could maybe get that raid slot. And then you whip out your credit card and you buy a bunch of WoW tokens, and then you use that gold. You go around to some auction houses, maybe you hop a couple servers, you get 3 pieces of your tier 3 mastery, you bring them back home, and guess what? There is no way that guy's going to be able to touch you anymore. That's kind of problematic to me. I don't like that. I mean, for us, it's like, I would never say that it's failing for us, because obviously all the top guilds are doing exactly what we're doing, right? So like, that's no longer like even an argument. If you make that argument, you're stupid. But for the average player though, that is a very real argument, right? Like, if you're competing with someone else and you have these pieces of gear, especially the low budget ones that are insane, like Gushing Wounds, the haste percent, mastery percent. If you've got multiple pieces of this and the people who are playing in your guild don't have those, there's just no way they're ever going to be able to touch you. And the way that you got them is just by paying real life money. That's fucking pay to win, but that I'm not okay with that. It's kind of.
So if you were to change it, would you just make BOEs not corrupt, or would you just make every piece of loot corrupt?
Well, here's what I would say, right? Here's the easiest way to fix all of this. It fixes every problem. So easy, man. Every piece of gear corrupts always. And then
that's what I was gonna say, yeah.
And then and then there's no cost to uncorrupting item. There's no cost. You just go and you do it. Okay? Here's why it's great. You can just always get what you need to get, right? And for everything else, you just cleanse it. Whatever.
It's just so much more accessible. It wouldn't have the need to buy millions of gold of BOEs just to like guarantee that one player gets one piece of loot.
Yeah. And yes, BOEs would still have corruption, but it would be so much less of a thing, because you would just be like, oh, well, I could just run a couple days of Mythic Plus and get the same thing. It's not obtainable. Like, here's the real problem, right? Think about this in terms of alts for us moving forward in farm, okay? We've got, let's say, THC's mage, okay? THC's mage wants to do the raid, and he comes into the raid on his mage, and guess what? He doesn't have any BOEs, because we aren't buying BOEs for THD, right? Sorry, THC, you ain't getting any of those. That character is going to be a piece of garbage until he gets what he needs. And mastery percent isn't exactly the most common affix to see on a corrupted item. So alts are going to be miserable. If you thought essences were bad, not having near essences on your alts, just wait till you see corruption. You're going to hate it. So yeah, it's a huge problem. I can't believe it's the situation we're in, but we're in it. So
I'm right there with you. I think we're all in agreement that every piece of gear should automatically have corruption on it.
All right.
How do you feel about the tuning of corruption though? Like the amount of damage you gain from it.
I think that it's fine the way. So if they do crazy things like this, or legendaries, that's fine. It's just the problem is always the acquisition of the items. That's always what it comes down to. Adding crazy damage effects is awesome. It's fun. It's really cool to make those decisions about, oh, should I go Infinite Stars? Should I go this? Should I go that? Maybe this fight is an Infinite Stars fight, right? Like Ny'alotha, it's a perfect example of really good Infinite Stars fight. That stuff's really cool, and I love it. The problem is always that they misstep on how to get the items in the first place. They're just too focused on making this into a casino and not a game.
Yeah, I think it may have something to do with like player retention too, though, right? Like they see that the players will end up playing the game longer if they don't complete out their full BIS list and shit like that, and they'll see that people are willing to play the game longer if they're not like fully maxed out, right? I think that has to be the reason that Titan forging was added. And now corruption.
I think corruption is just a more frustrating form of Titan forging, because back when you got a Warforged or Titan Forge piece, it was always better than the base piece. And nowadays, there are bad corruptions. There are corruptions that you never want to see. And it just feels bad to get those when you could have gotten something that would have been better. So I just don't think the system is good in general. I think making guaranteed corruption, like Preheat suggested, would definitely be a step in the right direction, but it's still not better than what Warforging or Titan forging was.
Yeah, I think that on the balance, the negatives here are way bigger than the negatives have been before. But I think there are some unique positives to corruption, like the process of actually deciding which corruption items to wear once you have 300 total corruption in your bags and figuring out which 100 to wear. I think is actually really interesting, and there's a different right answer for every boss fight and for different situations. So I love that part of it, but the negatives just so vastly outweigh the positives right now.
I mean, it's exactly like Preheat said. It's just acquisition. You're not able to actually budget right now because you just have so few pieces of corruption gear. So you just pray that the first 4 to 5 weeks you just get good corruption, or like Preheat said, you just purchase it.
Yeah, whip out the old credit card.
That's right.
My BOE now, bro.
You can do that. Everyone listening to this right now, if you want to get a raid slot guaranteed, go buy your perfect corruptions. It'll cost you a little money, but hey, you will not be sittable anymore. So, if that's what you want to do, I'm telling you, this is one weird trick. Raid leaders hate it. Just go and get all your perfect gear. You're literally
There will be a new meme made soon.
Okay. So BOEs and stuff aside, all of those kind of, islands, all that stuff that we hate. Well, and Preheat loves the islands, and THG loves the islands. We get to Ny'alotha finally. We start the race. You guys fly in here to this place a day or two in advance, and then the day starts, and you're into the raid. What was the thought process behind choosing the path you guys did through the early bosses?
I mean, the first three were obviously the first three, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing special about those choices. Those were all pretty much one-shot bosses. And then we did what everyone saw us do, where we /targeted the next 6 bosses just to see what their health values were. And we're I think a lot of the choices we made were based off of that. Like Shadhar and Hivemind, we knew were going to be pretty easy mechanically, and if the health values were low, they should be pretty easy to kill. And then after that, we saw Vexiona and Rodin have somewhat low health, and those were the next 2 after that. So that was pretty much all there was to the. Yeah,
you guys rolled up on Zanesh, pulled her, saw the ads had 7.5 million health or whatever, and then just left it, went away from it, because that was very different than on PTR, right?
Yeah, what's really funny is that all the bosses' HP changed dramatically, though, as we pulled them the first time. There's some bosses that we just killed in one attempt, but I guarantee you if we had wiped, they would have had a different HP value. Because in almost every boss that we wiped to this tier, whenever it came back, its HP was not the same as whenever we did the previous attempt.
Yeah, actually, I remember when we killed the third boss and we started zoning in. I remember we typed out the health value of every single boss. I remember Rodin, when we first targeted it, had 215 million health. And when we pulled it and reset it the first time, it went up to like 253 million. Like they did like a 10 to 50% buff on every single boss past the third boss. And I'm pretty sure it's probably not the full reason. We don't want to take credit for it, but like we targeted all the bosses and we're like, that's all the HP they have? That's it? And we kind of
I loved the Il'gynoth MC thing. You're like, it's only 2? And he's like, that's so free. And then instantly somebody goes, wait, that's so hard. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, that's unholy levels.
It's got to feel kind of weird, like just being hotfix all the time, being the front runner in a race, right? Like you do something and then the next time you do it, it's different. Does that bother you guys, or are you just used to it at this point?
I mean, the big thing that I think is different from us than most guilds that we compete against is that we have like the fear of God in us. If we see a strategy that's possible and like we think there's any chance that Blizzard isn't going to like it, we just don't do it. So for instance, the strategy on Il'gynoth that you saw Alpha kill the boss with, where they didn't dispel any circles at all, we thought of that strat and we were going to do it. And then, I mean, I said it, there were a couple of people that said it as well, is, well, wait a minute, the boss doesn't do mind controls if everyone has the circle, and that's exploiting, that's removing a mechanic from the fight. So there's no way we can do that. So we ended up just killing the boss the normal way.
Well, that's
that's
because of Helya shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you guys got banned back in Helya for intentionally tank death during breath, making the fight no longer do mechanics.
So that was a spot where the goal was just to remove one breath by dying there, and then it ended up causing other mechanics to not happen later on. In the same way that the goal with not dispelling curse bloods is that you just don't want to deal with all the curse breaks, and you would still do the MCs if they came out, but it happens to remove those two, which makes it into an exploit.
So it's actually the same thing. It actually is the same thing. It's just that, you know, in one case there was action, in one case there wasn't. Straight up, it's the same thing. Like literally, we had combat resist for every single breath for a tank to die. We had that available on our kill, right? And we made a point for that to be a thing because our strategy was always to have the tanks die for every breath. And then for some reason it changed where the breaths just never happened again. But like, if you remove a mechanic from a fight, you can be banned for it very easily.
I think that's good that you guys decided not to do that. I think that's a good mindset to have, honestly. You never know what you're going to get banned for in World of Warcraft.
It's a disadvantage because obviously like other guilds do it and it's fine, right? Like you never know what's going to happen, right? With Rodin, perfect example, like, you know, basically how that conversation went before the boss was, THC was like, hey, there's this really stupid shit where I can do like 200,000 damage DPS. And I was like, don't do that. I mean, like it's one of those things where, you know, if we see things happening and we're like, not sure about this is a little gray area, we will always go on the side of caution. And it's just because we literally, like Zara said, we have the fear of God in us. We don't want to get anywhere near that stuff, right? And it does disadvantage us, but it is what it is. Now, here's what's really weird, though, is whenever stuff like that gets fixed and then they nerf the bosses to accommodate it, and it's like, dude, we killed that without that. You don't need to do that.
Dude, Raw Din got a 5% health nerf only because guilds were doing Grimoire Supremacy cheese. Otherwise, that boss would not have been changed at all.
I mean, we did it without it, so I don't understand why they nerfed it, but
I think it's important to mention like how difficult that boss was if you didn't do the Grimoire Supremacy cheese. We were lusting on the pole and dealing with the fourth set of orbs and the fourth set of ads, whereas with the 4 warlocks doing the Supremacy cheese, they got through 3 phases and they saved their lust for the last phase. Like we were doing an entire extra phase in the fight. And so like in my mind, that was like, yeah, you're literally using a bug to remove mechanics from the fight, which is the thing that we don't want to do. So it was frustrating to see that happen for sure.
Yeah, but you still managed to kill that boss in like fewer pulls than many of the guilds that used Grimoire Supremacy, right? Drestagath, another example. Drestagath was a boss fight where you guys just rolled up and killed it in 15
we don't know what that fight does.
Yeah.
No one knows what that fight does in this guild.
Yeah, we just walk in circles and the boss dies.
Okay, do you actually... So was there any point in this tier where there was a boss fight that, you know, was a challenge, a roadblock for you guys, or did you feel like you were performing on every single one of them?
I think we performed out of our minds on every boss, honestly. It's really like, it was amazing to see this guild do as well as it did, and consistently too. You know, old limit back in the day, I mean, even, you know, a couple tiers ago, like our morning pulls have never been good. Normally we suck until lunch. This tier, we end at, let's say, 25%. We wake up the next morning and we hit 23% first pull. right? Like it's just crazy to see. I guess how consistent we've become. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there were really any roadblocks. We did things a little differently on some bosses, and it did cost us time, right? And we did have to kind of adjust for all the weird changes that were happening, because there were a couple weird changes that happened during progression for us. But overall, I'd say that like none of that was really in our control. The only thing I would say maybe that was like a weird little blip was like there were like 2 hours on N'Zoth that we kind of weren't all that great on, but like, dude, we came right back from that. So
that being the only period of time where it was a struggle was pretty impressive. That's so much time in a row that you guys played out of your mind. That's hard.
I think, I mean, it wasn't the guild having a problem; it was me having a problem. So that's okay though.
it was more than just you. I mean, I was also struggling a little bit. There were other people too. I mean, it's just, you know, it happens, right? No one can keep that consistency. I think we played insane on every.
Part, yeah.
How much of a unique skill is it to be able to play well after, like, there are a lot of people who can play WoW to a pretty high level. How different is it to be playing WoW at that same high level after having already played for 15 hours that day?
It's not the same at all. It's a completely different thing. Yeah, I mean, like, the ability to do well consistently is a completely different skill set than the ability to just do well, right? Well, I think the best way to put it is like, if you're like a parser and like a guild that watches, you know, videos for all your kills, which is basically everyone other than like Meth and us, or maybe just us, you know, it's really difficult to go in and do that DPS and then say, at least it's difficult for me to believe you if you say like, oh, I'm just as good as those players, right? Like, you don't understand, I guess, what's going on behind the scenes to get us to where we are here. Not to like discredit, right? Like I mean, obviously, if you can do really good damage, you're probably a really good player. I think that's like generally true, but it's definitely a lot different to be doing really good damage 16 hours after you started playing, and you've been doing that every single day for the last 2 weeks.
Do you think that like all of the tiers of experience that you've had this expansion have like built up to the point where you guys have better systems in place and are just like more well equipped to be able to raid for prolonged periods of time? Do you think it just takes like tiers of practice to be able to even get to that point, or do you think it's something that some of these newer players can just kind of jump into and be okay with?
It's rough for new players. You saw that with the Vade. He literally fell asleep during the break during this tier, but he bounced right back from it. I mean, Babby's first mythic progression is real as fuck for some of our people. Like the people who haven't done it before, they're in for a fun trip. It's really about building the mental callus, right? It's like if you're trying to learn to play guitar, like your fingers are gonna get real fucked up at first, and then once you build up the callus, it gets easier and easier over time. And just like any sort of marathon, right? It's about your mental ability to stay focused in prolonged periods of time. It's really difficult to do. The only way you can really get good at it is by doing it over and over and over and just putting it into practice.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the end of the raid. So one boss that was really hyped up from PTR testing was Carapace and Azeroth. That was one that kind of everybody thought was going to be the wall. Did you guys feel like that was going to be that way too?
Oh yeah, I mean, we all had the same opinion too. We're like, I think the prevailing opinion of everyone in this guild and a lot of people outside of the guild as well was that the first 10 bosses would fall over similar to Antorus, and Carapace would be the first hard boss. And that didn't really end up being the case.
Yes, it turns out that there were many bosses before Carapace that were harder than Carapace, or at least higher pull counts than Carapace. Carapace had this kind of moment on phase 1 where you saw the 4 tentacles spawning when on Heroic it had only been 1. How was that moment for you guys seeing that the first time?
I mean, you can just look at the reactions, right? Like I'm sure that there were clips with like, you know, tons of views of all of our reactions. Everyone was like, "What?" Like it was it was a funny moment to just hear everyone yelling at the same time in just complete confusion. Yeah, it was great. I think that fight's great. I think it's a great fight. I think that it was tuned a little low, but I think the tuning, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, is just fine, man. This tier was great. The tuning on this tier was fantastic. Just you know, forget about the part where, you know, N'Zoth was literally unkillable for 4 days because it put up a shield. Forget about that part. And everything else is like really on point, man. Like this tier was great. Carapace was great. I am so happy that that boss was exactly as many pulls as it was. Because it was a really cool fight. It was really thematic, and there was really only one way to do it. It wasn't like hard or complex in any way. It was just, there's nothing you can really think about. It's just, oh, you just do the fight normally. The only thing to really min-max on that fight was like movement in the last phase and who goes to what side, right? That's like the only decision making you really have on that fight. Other than that, it's just do the fight normally, right? But I think that fight was really fun. It was really thematic. It was very cool. The art team like kicked so much ass. They always do, but like on that fight specifically, they did such a good job with making the fight look really cool. And I wouldn't change anything about that fight. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I talked to Darky a little bit about it, and he said basically if anybody ever has your guys' phase 2 strategy, the boss just kind of falls over. So I think other guilds may have a little bit different opinion of how Carapace was, but I think for you guys, just the being able to the discovery process over the whole entire thing, it was actually really cool to watch how you would end up getting your sanity back and how you would make like all these sanity neutral plays to make sure that you were okay the whole entire time. It was really cool to watch.
Yeah, it was fun to play it too. I mean, it's always fun to like figure out the puzzle live, right? I feel bad that because of streaming, like not many people will get to experience that. But in a way, it's kind of fun to share that experience with other people as well. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, so back in the day, you'd kind of have the like 5 or 10 guilds in the world that would see it before the kill video came out and progress on that version. And nowadays, it's kind of just you guys who like know every other guild knew the 4 tentacles would be spawning there, and you guys saw that for the first time and all that stuff. I don't know. It's a little bittersweet, obviously. Like the old pre-streaming world is gone, but on the other hand, thousands of people on Twitch got to see those 4 tentacles and have it be new for them as well. So the total number of people who had that experience was probably higher.
Yeah, it's not worse or better. It's just different, right? And it's true for every game. It's not just World of Warcraft. It's literally every game that comes out nowadays. Like look at Death Stranding, right? Whenever everyone was watching the game and people were roasting it, the Twitch armchair guys are like, this is the worst game ever. And I think in a lot of ways, like it hurts the gaming industry, right? Like it makes it harder to design like a really cool artistic game, because you're going to hit an audience of Twitch viewers that just are going to try and roast you into oblivion, right? But also your audience is bigger, so it's like a neutral kind of thing. I don't know if it's worse or better. I don't know if I like it, but it's not like you can go back, right? Like obviously this is just how the world works now. Everything's getting streamed, so
there's kind of a lot of that you can't go back stuff. Like splits have been that way as well. The kind of arms race to getting full BOEs to having helpers help you do splits and get as much gear from that as possible. Adding in the coaching role is something that sounds like it's also not going to be something that really world first guilds will be able to go back on. It's just kind of the forward progress is not stoppable.
Yeah, time marches on, and there's nothing you can do about it. So just gotta adapt.
All right, let's talk about N'Zoth, Mythic Ny'alotha. This was a fight that had a secret mythic phase. How did you guys feel that first day when you went to the to that chamber?
Well, it was weird because we did it off stream, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Everyone knew that what we were doing. We weren't being slick at all. We just wanted to make sure that we didn't give away we didn't give away information because we were so far ahead. And honestly, like I think everyone had the same opinion of it. Is that's the mythic phase? There's got to be something more than that, right? Like that's way too easy to do. You just have to save your enough necks to get through that phase. And it's kind of weird that ended up being just what the mythic phase was.
I agree. It had to have been something better than that, right? You go in and kill one tentacle boy, and then you come out and you do the fight like normal. But it could have been a second time, which is what everyone thought at first, where you go in and then it fires the cannon at the boss, and then you have a really cool damage burn phase where you get bonus damage and you can get mind control for even more bonus damage or something. That's what everyone thought it was going to be.
Yeah, we wanted to fire the cannon. And the weird thing is it wasn't even a named mob. It was just named Void Spawn Annihilator. And also, the other weird thing was you could just target it when you started the boss. It was there the whole time. It wasn't hidden or anything. So, I mean, it just seemed like it was really
Turns out, though,
thrown together.
The real cannon was the friends you brought along the way. And that nuke on the boss fight was that was the sickest part of this progression. Tettles is giving me a stare for that cannon bit. The at the start of progression, you were like, okay, we think we can get this boss down to 50%. Okay, no, we think we can get it down to 30% to trigger this last phase. Okay, yeah, it's got to be 25%. We think we can get it down to 25% to get this boss to its last phase. Turns out you had to get it down to 0% or 2% or whatever. How was that process of like discovering the total immensity of the burn ahead of you and the tuning on that fight, and then realizing that you could actually do it?
We have no instruction ever, and everything is confusing and nothing makes sense, and assume that everything's a bug. That's why I learned this tier. If you see anything, even if it's a very clear mechanic, just assume it's a.
Okay, so that's the thing where the boss would just shield at 25% and open up its portal room again, even when that was not supposed to happen. That was just bugged for 4 days.
I mean, dude, that is like the biggest loop, and it completely changes my mindset moving forward. I cannot believe that was a bug, and you know what? It's just, I guess we just have to accept now that anything that we see in a fight just could be a bug, right? And just play around it. We actually have 2 different N'Zoth strategies. We can do that boss 2 completely different ways, and that's because we were introduced to a complete bait of a phase that ended up not being real. You ever bug a boss so bad that you completely add another phase and then you find out that it's not really a phase? Like,
then you trick your whole entire guild into believing that the boss dies at 25% because of this bug.
Yeah,
and
you guys just
that
like
you actually have to
save the space as well around the gateway. You have to like save necklaces, save space, save damage cooldown, save sanity. Turns out, no, you don't need any of those resources for the 13-minute mark. You just need to kill the boss. So it's all about the boss damage instead.
Yeah, I mean, so just, now that you've seen that that's how things can be, you just have to assume that in the future it might happen again.
Yeah, that's that was crazy. That was an incredible sequence of events, but you guys managed to like push through that, despite losing some time on that. There was this moment where the email there was this correspondence from Blizzard that was like, hey, you just need to kill the boss. That was a bug. And then from that moment, you could tell that like everybody in the Limit team knew they could kill the boss. Like everything that you needed had now been solved, right? And you just needed to kill the last 25%.
Yeah, I appreciate that they fixed the boss like 4 days after we saw it the first time. So I mean, like that was, I'm not sure if that was good timing wise. It was. I mean, at least it was fixed, I guess, within not a longer period, right? It could have been worse. It could have been better, but. Yeah, I mean, you just gotta roll with it, dude. That's you can't expect too much. You just gotta roll with what you get.
I was talking to some former Blood Legion guys, and they were saying that this was way worse than like Mists of Pandaria and Cataclysm, where bosses would just go unfixed for like weeks, like a week, and just not, just like also have immunity shields and stuff like that, and just not be functioning. So
yeah, I
is
mean,
this really
like
surprising.
I might sound like I'm coming off sarcastically when I say I'm glad that they fixed it within 4 days, but I actually am. Like, that's actually better than I think what you would normally expect. So
it didn't wall you guys off, even though it just kind of baited the shit out of you.
Yeah,
we
you're
ended up
still making good progression, right?
We lost like what, maybe 3 hours of progression before being told that what we were doing was right and we just needed to kill it. So I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
Could have been worse, yeah. It's weird, but yeah, I mean, it could have been way, way worse. And the fact that there was communication and we didn't just have to figure out on our own that there's just no longer a last phase, was really good. So I'm glad they came through. And I do have to give props, in a way. Obviously I'm roasting them a little bit, but I also got to give a little props to Blizzard for at least being on top of our communication. Whenever we reach out to them, usually they communicate back. They may not communicate to us whenever they should, but at least whenever we reach out to them, they do respond. So at least they're responsive. They're not proactive, but they are responsive. So I will give them that. Thank you for being so responsive.
All right, let's talk about the day that you guys killed this boss. So the best attempt before had been in the 10% range, right? You wake up that morning, you roll into the studio. What was it? What was the emotion like in the room?
You want to take that?
Room was ready to explode. It was a powder keg. We were ready to fucking blast off.
And then you had your best pull of the day right after you woke up there. And yeah it was
that was insane.
It's 9%, just your first pull of the morning. You said you weren't a morning pull guild earlier. You didn't have any good pulls to lunch. What changed this time?
So I mean, what changed this time is we're just amped, dude. We got the discipline now, apparently, and you know, I can't put my finger on exactly what changed, but hey, I'm here for it, dude. If you can pull the boss and do better than you did the night before on your first pull the next morning, that's that good shit. If you're not gonna question it, you're just gonna roll with it. That is exactly.
I don't feel like you had like a multi-hour segment of just no progression the whole entire tier. Like, Xyronic, how do you feel about that? Like, I would like watch you guys, and sure, you would just like be plateauing in terms of like the level of your progression occasionally, but it would never go down. It would always just continue forward, and it was just like best pull after best pull after best pull, and it was like super weird to watch because guilds functionally don't work like that all the time. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just a metric of the guild being a lot better than it was before. And if there's ever a situation where one player is underperforming, there are 10 players on the bench, any of whom could just pick up the slack and, you know, pick up right where they left off. So there's like a huge motivation for the people that are in to make sure that they're playing as good as they possibly can in order to, you know, help out with that. I mean, it's never been like that in the guild before, for sure. We've always had, I mean, every single tier, I think we've had big plateaus in terms of progression time. And like you mentioned, it's just really, really uncanny how that never seemed to happen this tier.
It was just the night before we got the kill, but I mean, it was a mix of a couple things, right? So first off, it was the fact that we were all pretty tired. That was probably the most tired we'd been the entire tier was that night before the kill. And also the fact that we had just realized that all the training weights had been dropped, right? Because, oh, there's no extra phase, we just kill the boss, right? And everyone thinks, oh, this is fucking easy. Right. As soon as you have in your head, oh, this is easy, like, dude, that is exactly the opposite. You want to punch through whatever you're doing, right? Like you think that, oh, we have this in the bag. Like, never think that way. That's the worst thing you can do. So I think it was a mix of people kind of having in their head that like this is in the bag, this is going to be so easy. We took it for granted in a way. And plus, people were a little tired. So, you know, you always make little mistakes whenever you're tired. We knew that we were so far ahead that we could just go and sleep and get our full 8 hours and come back and kill it. So we were pretty confident that we could just go hit the hay, reset, and come back. And that's exactly what we did. That was the play, dude. That was the best play. But yeah, I mean, that was really the only inconsistency, I think, the entire race.
As Max said, we sleep when we win. Then he would tell you to come in at like 9 a.m.
Yeah, the whole like bit of let's just add more raid hours so that we're better. Like, that's just not true. It just never works that way. Like, there's diminishing returns on hours, right? And as you play more and more and more in a day, you become worse and worse at the game. There's only a certain amount of hours that your brain can function at 100% efficiency before it starts just like, it's like the half-life of your brain cells starts like, you know, all of them are just dying off or something like throughout the day. So, I mean, you only have a certain amount of hours that you can be efficient every day. You have to make use of them. That's also the reason why we were kind of salty about the maintenance stuff, right? Because if we're up for maintenance and we're expecting the servers to be up, right, and we don't know if they're going to come up, and then we're sitting there for 4 hours, that's like 4 hours of our brain function that we will never get back, right? Even if,
for sure.
Yeah, even if we have like an advantage in like terms of when the raid releases for us, like if we're awake for 4 hours and we can't play, that's still 4 hours that we're at a disadvantage on because we just can't get into the game, and we're just wasting those hours of thinking about stupid shit in Scribble.io, right?
Yeah, it's a good time. Okay, on the topic of hours, let's talk about, I guess, something that has been a big point of discussion around the Race World First for a long time. This tier, sort of not a big issue because you ended up winning by over 40 hours, but there's this issue of the North American servers coming up 16 hours before the European ones. How much do you think that helps or hurts you guys in the long run?
It doesn't. There's no major offset now. There is one very specific scenario in which I think the early start helps us, and that's if we get to reclear the raid and then pull the boss after we've recleared before EU gets their reclear. I think that's the only scenario in which the 16-hour advantage actually, you know, greatly benefits us. Because it's the offset is that anyone in Europe gets to look at our strats and copy them, you know, literally move for move and mechanic for mechanic, and that's not something that you can just take lightly. So I'm of the opinion that, you know, this tier, if Method killed the boss within 16 hours of us, we still would have won the tier. I don't think anyone in Method would disagree with that.
That's been the prevailing wisdom. It's just people who aren't familiar with the race who kind of spout that. I think I don't really see anyone who actually participates in the race believing that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: we get a 16-hour advantage. We're also the beta testers. There are a lot of things that we see, and it's not always 16 hours even. I mean, this tier it was 13, and then we had additional maintenance. I think the indie number was like 9. There's a lot of downsides. There's, you know what? Honestly, I hate the whole thing because it's a conversation that I just don't like the conversation at all. Like, I wish that it would just release at the same time for everyone, and it would just have like, I would just love for everyone to just shut up about it, because I really don't think we get an advantage from it. And I feel like if anything, it just kind of hurts us, because then there's this separate conversation that people are always trying to have to try and discredit what we do.
Oh yeah, they're definitely trying to not legitimize your success, which is like the weirdest possible.
Yeah, and I just wish it would all come out at the same time. That way, just the conversation would be completely moot. So I think that would be.
Yeah, I think the global release would be just the best for all cases. Even if the playing field's already level, it would be nice to not have to worry to deal with all the commentary around that. And so yeah, that's great news. Although of course this time around, it didn't end up mattering, right? This tier was a 40-hour win, the most dominant performance that you guys have ever put out in a raid tier, right? Just incredible power across the board.
Well, FT said that he just wished you guys won by 1 hour so he could watch the world burn.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I think there would have been a lot more drama if that had happened. Like I said, I hate it. I hate all of it. Please make it stop, Blizzard. You have the power to stop this, and you're not doing it. So please.
Just imagine Twitter if that happened. Oh my.
Yeah.
If you guys don't follow much on Twitter, there's a lot of drama between the Race for World stuff. Race for World first between Limit and Method usually. A lot of it actually very tame, but there are usually some funny bits.
Yeah, my experience talking to anybody who's in either guild is that they would just wish that their fans would not. Hey, Padre.
Hey, look who we have here.
Oh, hi, Padre.
Has that been your experience as well, Preheat? Like the Max kind of put forward this thing like, hey, you're not a fan of ours if you're going and hating on Method right now. Is that your perspective too?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, sorry, I'm a little distracted from right next to me. Is that background sound coming through my mic right now?
No, you're good. You're fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, so I mean, definitely don't be toxic, and don't shit on another guild that's really good just because you think it makes us feel happy or like you, because we don't like you if you do that. I'm just letting you know, like, if you do that, you're not cool. And stay away from me. You're probably fucking cringe if you do that. So don't do that. Here's the thing, man. Any player in that guild or in our guild is like way better than anyone you play with. So just don't be cringe and say things like this person sucks because they die a lot. Like, you don't understand that. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I really wish that that there was a way that we could mitigate that in some way as a guild. But it's gonna happen, right? Fandom can be toxic at times, and just don't be an asshole, right? It's that easy.
Xyronic, however, disagrees and says that any hate tweets that are directed at Method, he will in fact retweet.
I don't think he said that.
No, I don't think I said that at all.
Xyronic has used shield block.
Like here's the thing, man. Like, every person in Limit, like, will go to bat for, and if you should talk them in chat because you think it like makes you feel good, you're we're all gonna roast you. We're all gonna come for you with our pitchforks, and obviously Method isn't our same org, but like they play at the same level we do, right? So just assume that they're as at like equal or or greater. So I mean, yeah. Back to backseat rating or like armchair rating. It's just it's fun, and I like it actually. I like it in some ways. It's kind of fun to like have a fandom that's like really over the top and like will go to bat for you for anything. Like it's kind of cool to be around crazy people sometimes. I don't know if you guys have experienced this in your real life, but like people who are like just way over the top, that can be kind of fun. I'm down for it sometimes. Sometimes it's fun to just like be around really crazy people. But
people that are way over the top.
Yeah, like like this guy. Yeah. Anyways, no, No, I mean, like, in all fairness, though, like, it's fun to have a little banter. It's fun that, chat can be really funny in some ways. It's just, some people take it too far. And I think really the root of that problem is people who are, like, not necessarily as socially intelligent as they think they are.
Let me also explicitly state that thing about Xyronic was a joke.
Yeah. Obviously.
Just so it's out there, he's not.
I could clip that out of context. That's all right, though. I've dealt with that in the past.
All right. I think that's most of the main parts that we have here for today's show. Got a couple of fun kind of questions going on now at the end. Let's start with Xyronic. Xyronic, if you were a developer at World of Warcraft for one day and you could make one change to the game, what is there anything that jumps to mind as like the biggest thing to improve for you?
Bring back mob class design.
That's a good call. Yeah.
That's it.
Preheat, how about you?
Well, I would have said account-bound essences, but now that I have them all, and I don't plan to make an all, I'm going to go with the selfish option and say make all gear corrupt, and let me remove the corruption myself.
That was a good idea. I like that one a lot. Let's talk a little bit about Max as a coach. Are you guys going to plan to run that back? Is that something that you're ever... like the coaching, is there any more roles you're going to split out from your 20 raiders? Is there anything that somebody in the raid was doing that you found that you can now pull out to somebody outside the raid?
So there was some shade from some of the casters for Method talking about this, like, oh, you have this guy who does this. No, I think that I don't see it going any further than what it is, right? Like, I mean, if you have one person who's kind of in charge of everything, that's probably better than having a bunch of people do it, right? Because they're just going to contradict each other. So I think that just doesn't even make sense as like a point. I think to make that as banter, like you don't really understand how this works at all. If you think that like is even something you should bring up, I think that one coach is always going to be better. I mean, look at football, right? You don't have like multiple coaches in most scenarios who are making all the shots. Like you have one guy who's obviously like in charge, right?
That is such a good analogy. Sorry. Could you imagine the quarterback of a professional football team also being the coach and like trying to like figure out what's the best move for his team in between plays? That would be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure at some point it was like that, and then they realized, hey, this is dumb. We should move that to someone else, right? And that's what we did too, right? Like I said, it's the logical conclusion. This is not anything mind blowing. This is not shattering the meta. This is just very obvious, right? You look at it and you say, hey, this doesn't make sense. We should fix this. And I think that we just stick exactly with what we have. I think it worked really well, and we continue to do it again.
So you guys coming back in Shadowlands, of course, even as winners, hopefully not going to get complacent. Was there any kind of things that you feel like you could further optimize from here? Of course, if you have any secret stuff that you don't want to talk about, that's good to not talk about. But anything you can tell us about a way that you could maybe even get better from this event, or is this just peak performance?
This is what peak performance is like. You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. And I don't think we're going to make many changes because honestly, I'm feeling pretty fucking confident about how this guild runs. That was 2 different memes I just made there. Hopefully, if you got both of them, then you get bonus points. Say it in chat if you know the 2 references I just made. One is a little bit more hard to put your finger on. Yeah. No. Honestly, though, it's. I think that we really have the secret sauce figured out. And I think that we've perfected the recipe in a way. We're gonna do some little optimizations, but I think that we have it pretty much figured out, and we're gonna continue with what.
All right, we've got a couple of questions now, Q&A questions from Twitter and Discord and stuff. First one comes from @Shinichi, who says, what do you think were the biggest assets, to your raid composition? Damage profile, utility spells, etc. So, Zyra, is there anything cool going on in the limit raid comp that was better than what the other teams had going on?
I touched on this a little bit before, but I think something that's really we do that people might not know is we tend to spread out the roles a lot. Like we have a lot of people in this guild that can play mage. We have a lot of people, especially I think our cloth ranger is something that's really interesting. Because we have such a massive roster size, we can pretty much put a pretty even amount of people on every single role and put ourselves in a position where if we want a certain comp for a boss, we can just run it. And that helped out a lot this tier more than the other tier, I think.
Something that we don't really ever get credit for, and I feel like people maybe aren't missing or are missing out on something that we're doing that I want to showcase and highlight a little bit is just how well we design our comps, and that's mostly done by people like Max, people like Kingfly and Padra, like the and the people that we reach out to. The guild is very much a council in a way, and a lot of people who aren't even officers, you might think that like we're being just run by the officers and the GM, but that's not how limited is, right? Like we have every member is really, really smart and understands this game really well in this guild. So getting only the opinions of a couple people just wouldn't make sense, right? We consult a lot of people in this guild. We have a lot of opinions, and I think that we make really good comp decisions. I feel like the people we choose to put on certain classes going into a tier, we try to be, bring a balanced comp, but we make some really good choices, and I feel like sometimes we don't get as much credit for that as we should.
Yeah, 4 main mages as well going into this tier. Like it's
ballsy.
It was big. I mean, part of it is that you have just a roster that is big enough as well to support. Like you just have 32 mains that are all really strong. You don't need to field alts on these last boss fights because you have just such a your bench. The players on your bench are better than almost every guild in the world. Like that would be that would be a scary guild to compete against as well. Just the Limit Raiders who were not in for that final kill. I would not want to be going up against them for anything.
Yeah, the Beanbag Boys. Yeah, don't fuck with the Beanbag Boys.
Beanbag?
Hey, so someone just asked in chat who is the key mage Eric are fired up, but you forgot Cyrith. So I'm gonna say Cyrith because I haven't seen him in real life, but I know that his mom is always rooting for him, and that's super cute. So I'm gonna definitely go with.
Yeah, something that I actually wanted to, I think it's very interesting that a lot of guilds have moved away from like the 23 to 24 man rosters, all of them with like 6 characters, and now you guys are just like blasting with 30 or 31 players that all play 1 or 2 characters.
We still have like the 4 or 5 alts. It's just those are just like fodder characters for splits.
Yeah.
All right, another one here. Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, like this expansion is also like very not alt friendly, right? So like, it's one of those where you kind of have to have people diversify what they're gonna focus on. No one is getting 80 on 2 characters before progression. If you do that, you need to be put in an asylum. So, I mean, that's it's one of those things where you just got to put all your eggs in one basket, and you got to figure out what baskets you're going to bring to the raid.
There's THD waving from the side.
So you said asylum, and now THD.
Yeah, there's THD. The most likely candidate to have 2 characters at neck level 80, I'd say, in this building. Let's talk a little bit about Mavie Cakes though on the Resto Shaman. How did you guys end up picking that healer comp? And of course, Mavie playing the Shaman was a bold move, right? Also,
I don't know how bold that is because Mavie's kind of always been known for being a really good Resto Shaman, and if there's ever a situation where it's viable, he's the guy that's going to make it really good. I think the only time he was ever off Shaman was for Priest when we were on Il'gynoth, and that was more of just like a damage thing. Shaman seemed like it was really.
All right, you guys saw his face on the kill, right? Like how he was screaming, dude. That's like him powering up as soon as he hears he's gonna play Shaman. Like he's just like and just his hair explodes into flames. Yeah, I mean, like that's. I mean, if you're gonna have a Shaman in the raid, that's him, man. So I think that's like the obvious decision.
That's that BDG shit. That screaming like you've just been murdered. All of them are just like. Once they kill the boss, I don't think I've ever heard a guild group scream as loud as BDG does. And they are so hype, and I respect the shit out of that.
Were you here the other night when they killed Carapace?
Yes, I thought it was going to be over for me. I thought we were dead. I thought that something bad was going to happen. Like we were just sitting there on our beanbags, and just all of a sudden, just the small smart cubicle erupts in laughter and cheering and applause. Screaming. Okay, another question here. What do you guys think about people being hung up so much on how well you parse on Warcraft logs now? How relevant is it in a progression setting to parse 99 to 100? Or is mechanical play more important? And how does Limit choose recruits?
Okay, so I'm the guy who filters all the recruits on the website, which is not where we recruit from, by the way. But we have that open, because every once in a while you get someone from there. But Yeah, so we have basically like an application spreadsheet that everyone who applies on our website, all their information gets put into it. And okay, so I will say this: when it comes to parsing on Warcraft logs, if you are, a top 1, top 5 all-star for your class, it probably means that you have a chance of being good. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're good, but there's a pretty high chance. It's like a pretty safe bet. So looking at that stuff usually means is usually like a qualifier, right? It's not like what we look at. It's just like it's like a check mark you have to check, right? So if I see someone and they're just insane at everything, usually what that means is that they've got a guild that's allowing them to do certain strategies to pump their damage up, right? Because there's a lot of cheeses that you can do. I think that people focus in general, especially like the more casual audience, focus too much on the parsing thing. But it makes sense, right? Like if your validation isn't from being the best in the world at the game, if your validation is from just looking high on the meters, then obviously that's what you're going to put your stock in, right? Like in this guild, we don't play like that because we are validated by what we do. So it isn't as important for us to be on, the top page of Warcraft logs. That's why we private, and it's not that important for us. But I can get it, man. I used to be there. I used to be all about the parsing, tongue out, as Max says, right? 86K. So I mean, that's just one of those things that I think every good player goes through the phase of trying to be the best they can in parsing on Warcraft logs. Like if you end up becoming a really good player, you probably had a time in your life when you cared about that more than anything else, and it's good. It's good to have that drive. What's really our challenge, I guess, as a guild is to find those people and to like beat that out of them and like reform them. But we're really good at it at this point. We can do that like so well. So yeah, I mean, yeah, apply if you think you have what it takes. I'm telling you, I'm probably gonna be really critical. You'll probably not get in, but it's worth the shot. I mean, a couple people have made it, so.
Yeah,
And to tack on that just a little bit, I think the biggest thing about this guild is not necessarily the damage, but it's how good you're at doing the damage and also being able to do mechanics, because everyone in our guild can do damage to an extent. It's more about how well you're able to deal with the mechanics on top of that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Definitely.
you wouldn't be in the guild if you can't do damage. Like, you wouldn't even be presented with the opportunity to join the guild if you're not like a skilled player at all.
Yeah, pressing the buttons to make the damage meter go big boom boom, that's like the easiest thing in this game, by the way. That's like literally the easiest thing. It's doing everything else plus doing that that's actually difficult. So, there's a lot of stock that people put into meters. It's just how it works, right? You have a weird one-sided metric and people can make the number be bigger than other people, and that's what they're going to focus on.
All right, thank you so much, Preheat and Xyronic. Congratulations again on securing your world first, bringing it home to America.
Thank you, and shout out to Concern Server. I see someone in chat from there. That's just a little group of friends I have. I just want to shout out those guys.
Oh yeah, Xyronic, any shout outs from you as well?
Oh man, none that I can think of right now.
All users of the
complexity owns, man.
all
Shout out to
users
those guys.
Oh yeah.
all users
Dude.
of the Eating Nam Nam weak aura. Shout out from
Oh,
Xyronic.
no. If you use that weak aura, you're a plague.
Is that why
You are a plague.
Is that why you changed your details name to begin this Dratnus eats people meme?
Oh no, that had nothing to do with it. That's completely separate.
Oh,
That's just because I eat people, man. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
All right.
that's all there is.
Yeah,
Thanks so
shout out to Pop Tart Corn Dog for for giving us those sick memes.
Pop Tart
And,
Corn Dog.
and your tank, who is a really good caster. We appreciated him and all the other casters. I think we had really good casters for this event, so I think we did really well.
was a
I'm
ton
really
of
happy
fun.
with how everything went.
All right, that'll be where we end our show. Bye, everybody.
later.
Bye.